New empires and kingdoms, administration of the kingdoms. Administering the kingdom. You have seen a pattern in every major kingdom that was established in India. What is the pattern? A strong person established the kingdom and then his successors expanded it. How did they expand? By conquering neighboring kingdoms. What did they need for these conquests? An army. What do you need to manage and maintain an army? Money. Where does this money come from? From taxes. Could a good king just make people pay tax without giving anything in return? No. The king also has to provide other services to the people like roads, dams, schools, temples, hospitals, etc. All this is administration of the kingdom. To do this, the king needed a lot of officers at different levels. All these people together helped the king with administration of the kingdom. Administration of the kingdom was a very big task which needed a lot of people to do a lot of things. So, there were a lot of committees at different levels. There were groups for different activities too. Some officers were appointed based on their own merit, which means if they were good at a certain task. Some positions were hereditary, which means that person's job would be passed on to his son. Some positions were given to wealthy people. Some positions were given to people who were popular in an area. Sometimes one person was given more than one position too. All this seems okay, but then once in a while, one of these officers could be very smart and become more powerful. And then he could overpower and overthrow the king. Think and discuss. What do you think may have been the advantages and disadvantages of having hereditary offices? Managing the army. Now you know that the army was a very important part of the kingdom. Kings tried to maintain very strong and well-trained armies. Armies needed elephants, chariots, soldiers on horses, foot soldiers, weapons, and so many more things. Some of these soldiers were given salaries and weapons by the king. Some of these soldiers were independent. That means they had their own horses and weapons. How do you think that worked? The independent soldiers were paid by a different leader. The king did not give money to that leader. Instead, gave that leader some land from the kingdom. The leader had to make his own money by using that land. How did that leader make money? By collecting land revenue from the people. Wait a minute. Wasn't this the role of the king? Oh yes. So this leader kind of became the ruler of the land. Why do you think the king might have done such a thing? It may be because the king didn't always have enough money in his treasury. Not having an army was not okay. So it was better to at least have a proper army this way. So this arrangement does seem okay at first. But again, some leaders would become really strong this way. And if the king happened to be weak, these leaders would start establishing independent kingdoms. Think and discuss. What do you think may have been the advantages and disadvantages of giving land grants to officers instead of salaries? New empires and kingdoms, life of the people. Ordinary people. The inscriptions on walls of temples and caves and even coins were made by the rulers and important officials in the kingdom. So, they give us information about how the kings and important and wealthy people lived. But most of the people in the kingdom were ordinary people. Their life must have been very different from the lives of these rich and powerful people. How did they live? We guess how their lives must have been from incidences mentioned in different stories. Some travelers who visited these kingdoms have written about ordinary people too. Some travelers noticed that untouchability was practiced by the people. People who belonged to the lowest caste were not allowed to interact with others. They had to do everything separately. There were so many wars that were fought all the time, so the army must have travelled a lot. There are stories which tell us that armies with their elephants and horses often destroyed a lot of villages in their path. Think and discuss. Write any two ways in which wars affect the lives of ordinary people today.